I really need y'all to stop saying that that man posted. Let's take a look at this post and you tell me if that man posted. Because on the day when a great civil rights fighter passes on into the great beyond, going through gates that he will never reach. Allegedly. He as in the Mandarin. Allegedly. This is what he posted. Not condolences to the family. Not really. Just another dig at the man he will never be able to come close to emulating the greatness of. The great number 44, Barack Hussein, whose name was given to him before we even knew the other Hussein. So y'all stop saying that. Obama. Like, how silly do you have to be to think that using someone's middle name is an insult? Should we be saying Donald John Drumpf? I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind being called Hussein than to have my boss calling me weird. Allegedly. Than to have my boss saying, oh, something's off here. So back to this self-inflating post. Now, some of y'all must be really young or have terrible memory, because if your memory was serving you well, then you would remember that in the first administration, we learned a certain somebody was functionally illiterate. Allegedly. So give me a second while I build my case, reminding you of who this man was. And yeah, I use past tense, to the point where we know he would not use such a word as gregarious. But you know who would? Somebody who has a propensity for talking like a deranged. I'll just leave that word hanging. Like, the functional literacy was so well known before there was ever a 1.0. Since we like hearing from this country so much, here's a blog writer who talked about it and pointed to quite a few sources himself, which we are going to visit. One such source was an analysis that he talks to those people at a 4th grade level. And y'all, I think that's a little high. And believe me, it's not because he had some ingenious chess match level strategy, but that had you been reading his tweets beforehand, before this even started, or even during 1.0, you would know that that's how he writes, too. Have you heard him string together more than a couple of sentences before now? Let's think of his cameos in movies. Let's also think of the TV show in which his daughter was the actual boss. The one that made him so famous that y'all actually bought the line that he was a brilliant businessman, a man with 6 bankruptcies. I guess we're about to add a 7th to that one now, aren't we? I mean, even the ghostwriter of the book that everyone swears is an amazing business book that points this guy out to be an amazing businessman says he regrets writing a book so good because it made people think he was intelligent enough to actually have pulled off those things that was in the book. He had no attention span, he had no maturity level, and he had no real success at all in business. So with the people closest to him who have actually helped build this persona of intelligence, where there isn't any, let's now dive into this post. Now, I was an English teacher for 15 years. I developed a knack of knowing when my students wrote something because I got to understand their voice. In fact, I was pretty much a brand story coach afterwards, well, during and then afterwards, helping people find and refine their voice for their businesses. And a person who speaks at a 4th grade level, who often writes at such or less. Gregarious, as I said, is not one of those words. Additionally, if you had been studying this man, because prey often learns the movements of their predator, and he has been a strongly trauma-inducing predator to many of us. The weaponized incompetence, the laissez-faire attitude towards a public health crisis, the wrecking ball taken to a historic building, signifying and symbolizing what he has done to us. I know a ghostwriter when I see one. I know an unhinged, bald one when I see one. And I've been seeing this one for a minimum of 8 months. So what are the tells? Obviously, we're dealing with polysyllabic words such as gregarious, the misplaced capitalization, the comma splices everywhere. John liked to use M dashes. I know, that is now an AI tell, but what do you think AI was trained on? People who write. I didn't say write well, but AI was trained on every written word available, including social media. And that man typed a lot on social media. Another tell that it is an early balding guy is the use of quotation marks. John didn't use quotation marks. And semicolons? I mean, these sentences were so long and separated by these punctuation marks that most people do not tend to use that I thought I was reading Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter again. In fact, there is an unhingedness that reeks of Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing. In fact, the idea of the Scarlet Letter, the ostracizing, that sounds like a little guy we have in office now. Another tell is the college paper of writing out something and then coming right behind it APA style and putting a parentheses of the abbreviation. Historically, come on now, HBCUs? Yes, I'm trying to avoid a color word because this is a very digitally muzzling app. So of course is the attack on the greatest to ever do it. And then he said that this was a man the other man couldn't stand. So I went and looked for it because I remember this guy crying at his inauguration. You know what the can't stand part was? That he didn't do enough for those with melanin. But y'all didn't give him a Congress to do it. In fact, Jesse had to admit that too. So that was the can't stand part. So to the one pretending to be John, you lack diplomacy, couth, and class.